Hello, viewer. Welcome to the debut episode of From Despair to Where, a podcast video thing. They'll probably only have one episode about politics, economics in Wales. Today I'm interviewing John Davies. It's going to be good, so tune in. So, this is the first episode of From Despair to Where, a show where I speak about politics, economics and stuff in Wales. First and potentially last episode, depending on how this goes. Today I'm joined by the wonderful, the one, the only, John Davies. John Davies is a candidate for the Senedd election next year for Plaid Cymru. He's a representative for Abertawe and works as a local business owner and has read economics and economic history. So John, please, would you mind introducing yourself?
Well, first of all, thank you for that introduction, and it's lovely to be on your show. Born in Swansea back in 1961. Very fortunate to end up going to university. Studied economics, moved to London. I had to move to London purely there was no work in the mid-80s in Wales. Fought my way back to Wales. Worked in the financial sector for the major banks for most of that time. But 20 years ago started a business myself, funding businesses in Wales on the front edge, and I've been doing that ever since.
So you act as a kind of matchmaker between the banks and the funding sources, and the businesses, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost a gamekeeper turned poacher, where we act on behalf of businesses and organise funding as best as they can possibly get.
Amazing.
Both working capital, investment capital and long-term capital. So it's a very close relationship that we build up with the customers.
And in addition to your work in your business, you also do a lot for Plaid Cymru.
I do.
Like I mentioned, you're a candidate for the Senedd election next May for Abertawe.
Yes.
And on top of that, you also contributed a lot to writing Plaid's economic plan.
I have.
Which was released this year.
Yeah, it was. It certainly was.
Yeah, so the reason I wanted to speak to you today is I think a very common narrative and attack that is sort of leveraged against Plaid Cymru by the press, and I think just by ordinary people who haven't heard all of Plaid Cymru's explanations about the economy. I think they have a sense that Plaid Cymru politically have got a lot of very grand ambitions. They want to spend a lot of money, be it on investing more in childcare, the NHS, social care, education. But they feel like they haven't really had a sufficient explanation of where this money's going to come from. So I thought it would be amazing to speak to you because A, you contributed to writing the economic plan, and also because your background and current profession is sort of in the world of finance and business.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of people who, well, actually, I'm going to cut this bit out. What I'm going to say is, I think a lot of people think of Plaid Cymru as being a party who's a bit like in a fantasy land, wants to spend a lot of money on a lot of stuff, and that we don't really understand business and economics.
Hopefully, I can explain to you a little bit more about Plaid Cymru and a little bit more about what we can do in the situation that we're in.
So I think many critics of Plaid Cymru have got this view that Plaid Cymru sort of exists in a fantasy land where we want to spend a lot of money on various things like healthcare, education, social care, but that Plaid Cymru doesn't really have the economic chops to really find the money.
Okay.
We hear a lot in the media about getting the money for HS2 and for the Crown Estate. But I think two things about that are, A, it requires us to negotiate well enough to get the money. So it's contingent on that. And also then that would be enough money for Wales to prosper, which I don't think it would be. As much money as we are owed for HS2 and that we'd get for devolving the Crown Estate, there is still a big wealth gap between Wales and the rest of the United Kingdom.
Yes, there is.
So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to show you a clip. This is of Rob Rinder on Good Morning Britain, interviewing Rhun ap Iorwerth.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at that.
It's in many places the poorest part of Britain. You've talked about taxing the wealthy more, public sector ownership of key sectors, ending outsourcing, rent caps. It's all very well, but the difficulty some people say about your policies is that you never run out of spending other people's money. How do you generate the wealth to do the type of things you want to do?
So yeah, to sum up that clip, Rob Rinder is just asking Rhun ap Iorwerth, where are you going to get the money from? Your manifesto is kind of spend, spend, spend. Does Plaid really have any plans for generating wealth in Wales? Which, from conversations with you, I'm convinced that it does have a very robust plan to do that. But I feel like it's not broadcast and lots of the public aren't aware of it. And I think this narrative that Plaid Cymru wants to spend money it doesn't know how to generate, I think that's just going to become a lot bigger in the coming months of the election. So just to kind of substantiate what I'm asking you first, I'm just going to read through some statistics.
Okay.
So GDP per capita, as of 2023, is £20,000 less in Wales than it is the UK average.
Okay.
Meaning that, on average, every Welsh person sort of gets, not that they get, not in terms of take-home salary, but they have about £20,000 each when you divide the GDP of Wales compared to the UK.
Mm-hmm.
£20,000 less, that's huge.
It is huge.
And then the GDP per capita in Swansea is 200 quid higher than the average in Wales. So it's still about 38% less than the UK average.
But it's less than the average in the southeast of Wales.
Yes, this is true. And then some other statistics are just that because we don't have as high incomes as the rest of the UK, Wales pays 40% less income tax than you would expect given its population compared to the UK average. We pay 45% less corporation tax compared to the UK average. And our capital gains tax, we pay 67% less than the rest of the UK. And this isn't because Wales is super laissez-faire and we have really cheap, like really low tax regulations. It's just because we don't have the money to necessitate paying higher taxes. One other thing I just want to say is regarding the NHS, because this is another big issue in Wales.
Yeah.
So the statistic, which I think is wild, is that one out of 200 people in England are on a waiting list, which is over a year long for the NHS. In Wales, this is 9 out of 200, so 9 times higher than England. And also, Wales uses a different, much more charitable metric than England for measuring how many people are on the waiting list.
Yes.
I won't go into the nitty-gritty, but basically, it's 9 times worse than England, at least. In reality, it's probably a lot higher. So the NHS is a lot worse in Wales than England. We have a lot less money per capita, paying less taxes. So I think when people hear Plaid Cymru saying they want to spend more, invest more, where's this money going to come from?
Marcus, you have done a fantastic job in explaining to people how poor Wales is.
Thank you. And I think
we need to start off from that very basic premise, that point.
Absolutely.
Is that Wales is poorer than Romania. Per person, people in Wales are poorer than Romania.
Yeah.
And the moment people realise how poor they are, they realise what situation we're in. And when you ask the question, how are we going to do it? We have to first of all try to understand why we're in this position. Because the answer to the question that you're asking is actually laid in the past. Yes. Now, Wales has been treated as a colony for centuries. And the essential point of that is that the country that's wanting to colonise is looking to extract the 3 elements of economics: the land, labour and capital. So when you look at Wales, as soon as as our best and our young grow up and are educated, the higher they get educated, the better they get educated, the further they have to move away from Wales. So we've paid for our children to be brought up, to be educated, only to lose our best and our good. There's a brain drain. And that is a big drag on our economy.
And a bit of a snowball effect, right?
It just keeps going.
Yeah,
but
compounds.
What happens is that it's not just that. It's, you look at the resources. Now the resources, whether it's wind power, whether it's water, whatever you look at in the past, coal or gas, unfortunately, we in Wales do not get paid for that. You did mention the Crown Estate. In Scotland, people in Scotland get paid for the Crown Estate. We don't in Wales. that is a huge cost and a huge loss to people from Wales, which should be coming to us.
So when you say it doesn't get paid to Wales, in Scotland, what is the system?
The money that is raised on anything that would be around Scotland, for example, on the shoreline, with regards to turbines and what have you, goes to the Scottish government. In
Okay,
Wales,
so it bypasses Westminster and
it
Scotland.
does not go. Why would it even need a bypass? Because it's in Scotland to start off with. It's stuck, and it stays in Scotland because it's Scottish. But what happens in Wales? It does bypass Wales. It starts off in Wales. It gets taken away from Wales, and the cost to take it away is a huge amount. All the profit goes then to a company that was established about 200 odd years ago, the Crown Estate. After their costs have been taken out, it then goes to the Crown, the UK Crown. They get their chunk, and after that it goes to Westminster. They take their chunk, and if we're lucky, we get a little bit of our own back.
I find that, incredible to
It's
believe.
filtered
I mean,
so many times.
it is
before
like a
it gets to
filtering
us.
system,
Yeah.
right? So it goes first, you said, to the Crown.
Crown Estate,
Crown Estate.
then the
West-
Crown,
Crown.
then Westminster, and finally we would have a little bit of our own back.
Wow. So it goes through like 3 gates until it gets back to Wales, and we get
Yes,
given.
we
okay,
get a
yeah.
little bit of it. But
Okay.
so you've got a young going, you've got the resources going. So there's land, and you've got labour, and the big thing then is capital. We get roughly about 33 to 40 pence per person spent per capita in Wales per person. In London, southeast, it's round about £1. So we get a lot less of an infrastructure in Wales, both hard and soft. And that has the impact of not allowing us to create a functioning infrastructure. So whether it be road, rail, airways, telecommunications, and it's not just a hard infrastructure, it's a soft infrastructure. I had a phone call off a good friend of mine who's in Kenya. He had a mobile signal. I live in Penclouth. I didn't. Now, I run 2 businesses, and I have to rely on Elon Musk's Starlink internet, because there is no internet connection for me where I live, just outside Swansea. It's appalling. You can't run an economy with the tools that we've got in Wales.
And it can be sometimes things that sound almost quite trivial. Like an example people have used that I've heard is that the Wi-Fi on trains is generally rubbish. So, even if it would add maybe, I don't know, you could do a half an hour of work on your commute every day, a bit of work on the way back. You just can't do that because the Wi-Fi is so terrible. If you get a seat.
It's that, but even when you get here, it doesn't work in many places.
No.
And we haven't got electrification to Wales. But the impact of that, the poorness of our infrastructure in Wales, leads to what we have the huge problem with then, is that businesses can't function. You've got a dysfunctional economy, and it's difficult for businesses in Wales, therefore, to grow to a certain size beyond which there seems to be in Wales a glass ceiling.
So before we get onto the glass ceiling, so I'm with your thinking so far.
Okay.
This idea that Wales lacks the infrastructure to enable function and to enable businesses to grow, people to work, etc.
And to provide the wealth for people to enjoy.
Yes, I understand that. I think it makes sense, and I'm on board. I suppose my question is a bit more simplistic and a bit of a chicken and egg problem, but if the problem is a lack of investment in infrastructure, the solution to me seems to be, well, invest more in infrastructure, be it soft or hard infrastructure, which leads me on to, I guess, my central question, and what I would really love to address today, is that, okay, we need to spend more money to make more money, but where do we get that sort of initial...
Okay.
Would the Crown Estate be enough to get this up and running? Would the HS2 money be
all
enough?
These things help, right?
Yeah.
All of these things aren't going to be answers in themselves.
No.
What we need to do is restructure ourselves as a society and our economy. Up to this point in time, in my opinion, we've had a government in Westminster that frankly doesn't care and is happy. They've actually constructed this situation that assets are taken out of Wales, our people are taken out of Wales, and the capital is taken out of Wales because it benefits them. We've also been stuck into a situation where for the last 20 years, the Labour government in the Senedd has not had an economic plan to create wealth in Wales. It's acted more like a glorified county council. It has a budget that comes from London, and it has an allocated amount of money to spend, and it decides how to spend that. But it doesn't take into account what we need to do to spend it to best effect, to create wealth ourselves, and to retain the capital and create profit in Wales that we can use to start dragging ourselves out of the hole that we've been put in. And no one else is going to do it other than us.
So I suppose when you say restructuring, I mean, maybe I'm just a bit slow, but like I find that word, it's quite a long word to be fair. Like, does that mean changing policies in the government?
Yes. There's a specific model of economics that's been designed for post-colonial countries. Now, Wales isn't post-colonial because at the moment, technically, I would suggest that we still are being treated as a colony. Our assets are being extracted for very little benefit to us.
And our assets
which
being
is keeping us poor.
Our energy, our water, and then you said also
The land,
this sort of brain drain.
And capital, the brain drain, yeah.
So
we're in a situation where we need to stop that. And Foundation Economics does that. There's an organisation called CLEES based in Manchester that have been promoting this type of economics for a long time. It's been tried and tested in many places. One place, particularly in the UK, in Preston. And in Preston, what they did was to stop money floating from Preston down the M6. That was done by having a number of anchor organisations, which includes councils, government organisations, universities, and large national independent companies.
So an anchor institution would be some kind of institution that is anchored to the place.
Yeah, and a major employer.
Okay.
Which would have a major spend within the area.
It's somewhere that can't just leave.
No, that's right. That's
sure.
it. That's
okay.
it. But what happens then is that they have a big buying power. Up to this point in time, it's really difficult, and my experience in Wales, very, very difficult for small to medium-sized companies to actually get onto the procurement lists nationally.
And a procurement list, what does that mean?
Procurement list is where government organisations or quasi-government organisations buy in goods and services.
So it might be hiring builders to build a new hospital.
It could be that.
Or choosing what coffee shop to open in the new hospital. What company's going to be responsible for that?
Yeah, and if there was a cafe, was it a locally owned cafe or was it a national chain?
So procurement is just kind of how councils and how public bodies choose what private sector goods and services.
How to spend their money in the private sector.
Got you.
And what tends to happen if you shut your eyes and draw a map of Britain and the UK, draw a line from London up to Edinburgh and maybe from Manchester down, just touching beyond Liverpool, that is the core on which is the backbone, the skeleton of how the infrastructural system is designed in Britain. And procurement would follow that. So it makes it very hard for businesses in Wales to get on that. And I've been fighting on a few occasions, getting customers of ours who are major companies in Wales, even to be able to access any of this procurement, government procurement in Wales. It's supposed to be open, but it is very hard to get onto.
So it's easier a lot of the time for these government bodies just to employ
go with the flow.
A big multinational company or somewhere from it, like a really big company.
I'll give you an example in a minute, a big example in Swansea.
Yeah.
But the big thing is that you create a contract, a social contract, because in this, these anchor organisations are contracted to give any contract allow at least to go to a local business as long as the price was right and the service was right. And invariably it is. In Swansea, for example, you would be able to produce something or give a service far cheaper than a company from London who'd have to employ people to stay over.
Okay.
Or transport it from London to Swansea.
Yeah, so that geographical distance, or lack of geographical distance, makes it a bit cheaper.
Massively, and the cost of living is much cheaper here than it is in London.
Mm-hmm.
And in Preston, when this was done, it worked. It was audited. And what happens then is the local businesses start earning the money that otherwise would have flowed down the M4.
Well, I've got the number in front of me,
Okay.
actually. So I think in Preston, actually, I think maybe you've got it in front of you.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I can tell you what it did. It was it was 74 million pounds that now each year gets embedded within Preston, and a further 250 million pounds ish
yeah,
gets embedded and anchored in Lancashire.
which is a game-changing amount
Huge.
of money.
It's actually changed Preston from being poorer than Swansea within a 10-year period to being much wealthier. And they actually complain a little bit about gentrification, but it's internally created gentrification, so people have got the less poor and much better off.
So, I mean, honestly, I think that figure is way more interesting than what I had in front of me. I just had that Preston increased their spending from 5% to 18% in Preston itself, which is quite a big change.
Massive. But what you find
And in
is,
Lancashire from 40 to 80%.
Yeah.
So 80% is almost all of their procurement spending is staying in Lancashire.
and that makes a huge difference. Because failing that, that would be floating down the M6 to London, which enriches London and impoverishes Lancashire. In Swansea, if it was used in the city and county of Swansea, on a per capita basis, Swansea's a bigger town, it would every single year embed 134 million into Swansea and about 300 to 320 million in and around Swansea. Now, I believe the Scottish National Party have just accepted this as a policy in Scotland. It's something that I've been pushing for quite some time here in Wales. But if you looked at it in Wales as a whole, each and every single county council earning or retaining that amount of investment each and every year. And when they retain money, there's going to be fallout around their area, which would then fall into Swansea. So the amount of money that Swansea would have would be 174. The other bit that they were earning, which is about 300 million, would fall into some into Cardiff, some into Bridgend, some into Llanelli and further west, and some up to North Wales maybe. But all of theirs would then start falling into Swansea as well. So you're creating wave upon wave upon wave, and you're looking in the billions that it would actually allow to be embedded each year. And the really good thing about this is that there's no government hand on the money anywhere. It goes straight from, it's the government that anchor organizations that have it in the first place, that it goes to the businesses, the local businesses, who then pay their staff. So the money goes directly to where it's needed. And as part of the contract that I mentioned, the social contract, the businesses would then need to up their terms of employment in terms of no minimum wage, it's living wage, holiday pay, and all the terms were changed, which allows poverty to be reduced at the base level without government spending in Wales any further cash.
I think what really impresses me with that economic model is that surely, I mean, like you said, if you think of this kind of like fallout all across Wales, because at the moment, I guess you can think of money. I mean, yeah, the analogy right is like going down the M4. Money is just like
It is
like a straight arrow line
it is.
down to London.
Yeah, it's a straight road.
Whereas what you'd have instead is kind of little centers of activity all around the country, and then money kind of dispersing from these. So like instead of the money just going out like a chute, it all just stays around and like kind of is retained a little bit.
In a functioning economy, they have what's called a multiplier effect. It could be as low as 2, we could be up to about 3.5. So when you have a big investment, that money, if it was £100 million, would not just be 100 million, it would reverberate, it would bounce around 3 times, 3.5 times. And what then happens is it's a substantial boost to that economy. Every time we have money spent here, at the moment, that money disappears down the M4. If I ask you now, you took £100 out of your pocket and you spent it. It's the average £100 you've got. You think what you spend it on.
Companies
And
from
where
outside
that
of
money
Wales,
goes.
generally,
Exactly,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
It's a huge percentage of it. So even if you had no income and you had £100 given to you by somebody from Westminster, that money would still go back to Westminster. Okay, and that is the drag that we've got. The moment you can start repairing the base level economy, which is what foundation economics is about, then that negative multiplier that we have, because it's money's floating away, actually reverses and becomes a positive one. So that snowball effect that you were talking about earlier, it will get bigger.
Yes,
and
it
it'll get
compounds.
bigger. It compounds,
Grows and grows.
as long as you stop that big leak in the bucket that's flowing away. The sooner you put the money in, it flows out. We've got to stop that money from flowing out. The moment we do that, the game changes in Wales financially, and we can really start to look to repair our economy. And these are the things that in Wales we need to consider and we need to really think about, because until we've done this, the economy can go nowhere.
So I think, when you just pause to think, if I had £100 and I spent it somewhere in Wales, where is it going to end up? I think that's a very useful thing to do, because I think a lot of people, I say myself included a few years ago, if I heard someone describe Wales as a kind of a colonial economy, I think I'd just look at them and laugh and say, well, I've got my TV, my parents have got a car. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think I find it quite funny. But then when you think about it, like, I don't know whether you're buying food from McDonald's or Domino's or buying a pint in a pub, the money, it's almost like there's the old story of those coal mining towns, right? Where the coal mining company kind of owns the town, they pay their workers a wage, who then spend it in the coal mining shop, and the money just reverberates in the area.
That, what they used to do is pay them in tokens that they could only redeem in their shop.
Yeah, I mean,
so you're stuck. And it's a similar sort of situation. We're in the Crofty pub.
Yeah.
And
I bought a Moretti.
Yeah, you bought a Moretti, but they have Gower Gold.
They don't.
No.
I tried buying a Gower Gold, but they were all out.
But if you bought Welsh bitter, then that money would stay here. Every time you spend money that is on top, it disappears. And it's something that we've got used to. And it's not a bad thing, but the problem is we've not developed any sizable businesses in Wales because of the situation that's been imposed on us that allows us to have sufficiently large businesses that are having exactly the same effect by selling things outside of Wales to bring money here.
Something I'd like to do as well is
that's where that glass ceiling is.
When we talk about money flowing outside of Wales, I'd kind of like to unpack what that means as well, because I mean, it takes a few forms, right? I mean, if we stay with the analogy of buying a beer and Moretti, I'm not sure where they're based, but it's outside of Wales, probably, I imagine. Let's say it is.
But isn't in Wales?
Yeah, it's not in Wales, is it? I mean, the money leaves Wales in the sense that it goes to a company whose profits go to people outside of Wales, a company who will pay their corporation tax outside of Wales, and a company whose labourers will spend their earnings outside of Wales. So I think that's the sense in which money is flowing out. Because sometimes I think it can sound a bit abstract to say money is flowing outside of Wales, but
you need to understand it affects every single part of the chain. I'll give you a prime example of how bad things are in Wales in terms of bad governance.
Can I interject before to mention the snowball effect? Because I think I know the example. I'm quite hyped to hear it.
Okay.
But with the snowball effect as well, I mean, again, money is flowing outside of Wales. Some real free marketeers might say it's competition, best company, whatever. But then the thing is, like, money flowing out of Wales has a negative snowballing effect in the sense that, like, well, if all the money's going outside of Wales and these companies are paying corporation tax outside of Wales, it means that they're going to invest in their local infrastructure rather than, let's take Swansea as an example. So it's this kind of like downward spiral, self-fulfilling prophecy where it's like, if Swansea has bad infrastructure or relatively bad infrastructure for businesses, therefore there's few businesses. So you buy from other businesses, which means Swansea has less to put into infrastructure. So the businesses deteriorate.
And there are less jobs.
And it's just this constant race to the bottom. So the snowball loop, like,
It's a reverse snowball,
It's a reverse snowball. It just gets smaller and smaller
which is the negative multiplier.
until we're completely dependent on foreign external companies, which then kind of explains to you, I mean, that kind of sums up why we describe it as a colonial economy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just
Yeah.
wanted to say that,
Yeah,
'cause
yeah. No, you hit,
just to spell it out,
you
yeah.
totally hit the nail on the head. It's called foundation economics, and it's no different to a house. You can't build a house without solid foundations. If you do, it's going to fall down. You can't build an economy without solid foundations. It's exactly the same. And foundation economics, or the example of what happened in Preston, what could happen in Swansea or Wales, has been tried and done in many places. It's not magic. It's just what should happen. It's the norm to have a multiplier between 2 and 3 where money would float around. That's where it is, by osmosis, a natural place to be. It's not natural to have a negative multiplier. So there has to be other forces in play to make it like that. So when you look at what is happening and how the whole of Britain is dominated by the black hole, and that is the southeast of England and London. It's not just Wales that suffers, it's a lot of the UK.
Yeah.
But it's Wales that suffers by far and away the most.
As the statistics from earlier kind of evidence, right?
Yeah, there is no... Wales
Yeah.
is the poorest region in the whole of Northern Europe. Britain, believe it or not, is just about the poorest. It ranks with France as to who is the poorest in non-ex-Soviet bloc country. But those ex-Soviet bloc countries are coming at a fast pace.
Like Estonia, for example,
Yeah,
is like outpacing Wales, Slovenia. Yeah.
They are moving at such a pace that they'll certainly be overtaking Wales and overtaking Britain. But of that, you then have in Britain the richest region in the whole of Europe, which is London. So you've got a number of things in Britain which make things even harder. Is that Britain is one of the most centralized, developed nations in the world, which means 3/4 of all tax is raised in London, 25% roughly elsewhere. But if you then look at Germany, for example, it's exactly the other way around. The central government only raises 25% of the tax, but the 75 other percent would be raised regionally, which allows for a fair expenditure of cash throughout the whole of Germany. It's completely the other way around, which creates that black hole. And added to the specific issues with regards to Wales, in as much as the assets, the people, and the capital constantly flowing out, there is a no-win situation for Wales. It's like going to a casino and expecting to come out with a profit every time. You know, well, it is if you're living in London or if you're part of the establishment there, but it's not going to happen here. We're going to be losing every single time. And the whole point is trying to break that cycle. And it's a really good thing to do, because what you're doing is creating a far more robust local economy that is going to have smaller, shorter supply chains, be far more robust in terms of any issues with regards to another pandemic, or even issues with regards to Russia and Ukraine with supply chains. Things are far more robust. They're far greener, much, much, much greener. Because could you imagine if you create more jobs in Swansea, all of a sudden, who needs to commute so far to Cardiff?
Yeah, and logistics companies as well. You don't need to be transporting stuff as much.
You don't. And
so it's sort of like, it's not a fix-all solution. It's not a magic bullet,
no,
but it would certainly
it's not, but
some things, right?
It most certainly would, because the actual wealth generation here would increase. But what we need to do is look for a government that will actively look to use its powers to create wealth in Wales. We shouldn't have to just rely on a benefits culture that Labour give us. We can create our own wealth.
And I think it's the fact that it's so cyclical that really, I guess, frightens me, because you kind of need to act as soon as possible if stuff is just getting worse and worse. I mean,
Yes.
like the infrastructure example about that, I guess, deteriorating But then the brain drain example as well is a good example,
It's
right? If
constant.
you have people who are graduates from Wales, it seems kind of common sense
It
to
was
go
a
to
hard.
London or Edinburgh or
I
Manchester.
had to when I was younger, and
Yeah.
I was involved in a debate in one of the general elections in the local Gower College, and they're all economic students or politics students,
Yeah.
all 17-year-old, 18-year-old looking forward
Yeah.
to a life, and it was the most distressing, probably, well, certainly the most. It was the hardest thing I think I've ever done in front of a crowd, because I had to tell these children I could read their futures now,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, if they do well, they're gone. If they want to live in Wales, they can't.
Yeah.
There is nowhere that they could live and work in Wales and achieve what they can do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so sad when you see people, youngsters in Wales, full of dreams and hopes, and they can achieve them, but certainly not in Wales. And
Mhm.
for me, that is the biggest crime that we could commit.
Yeah, I mean, I find myself in that position. I'm looking for full-time jobs,
Mm.
and with the exception of maybe a handful in Cardiff,
Mm.
the really competitive ones are always in London, Manchester,
Yes.
Edinburgh, Glasgow, Birmingham, everywhere but Wales, pretty much. So yeah, it just begs the question: who's going to kind of like steward the country? Who's going to look after it?
Well-
Not just look after it, maybe, but who's going to make the super useful businesses and stuff? If everyone who's got the qualifications is just
You're
yeah,
right. But
moving
what
out.
we need to do, and education is a huge part of this, but we need to make it specific to what it is that we're looking to do. I mean, Wales has a huge opportunity. Climate change is giving Wales the biggest kick start that we could ever look at. We are the richest, one of the richest, certainly in Northern Europe in terms of natural renewable energies, and these are the things that need to be harnessed. We have huge amounts of intelligent people in universities in Wales, where again we need to harness these people with regards to new technologies that are going on, and we need to concentrate on these areas. I mean, the Danes have done it massively with wind turbines. We should be looking at the tidal lagoon. I mean, there's no ifs or buts. It's the second biggest tidal fall in the world in
So
Swansea
this was
Bay.
the Swansea tidal
Yeah, well,
lagoon, right?
if-
So that was a project abandoned.
it was abandoned, but if I could just go through a couple of examples
Yeah,
of
yeah,
what was so bad and what could be so good.
yeah. Please do.
Okay, and the reason why, and the impact that it has on employment, because we're on about youngsters with good jobs. So, could you imagine? I mean, Swansea's just been. We've got a new digital arena. Okay, the digital arena. Climate change is coming along, and we've got, as far as I'm concerned, no solar panels on it. I may be
No.
wrong there.
And the digital arena is almost on the beach. Well, it's not on the beach, but it's right by the marina.
It's an odd place for me to have something like that, because you've got a beautiful area right on the beach for people to go into the dark and enjoy themselves. That wrong
And we
place.
have a civic centre, a prison, and now a digital arena.
That's
Because
right.
who'd want a promenade,
Who's
right?
to want a
Like-
promenade for
Yeah.
people to enjoy themselves?
Yeah.
But on a proper economic note, you've got a company in with the digital arena from Manchester, Urban Splash, that sold the idea to Swansea Council. It's going to be great for the people of Swansea, and you're going to have flashing lights all over the place. Okay, they were then going to organise the company to build it, and that company came from Buckingham. Then they said that, okay, the people from Urban Splash not only would design it, they'd actually run it. Okay, so that leaves local jobs relatively poor paid. Right, okay. Right, what's happened from there is that after everything that was done, as far as I'm aware, it's struggling to make money. So there's not a huge amount of profit coming from there. It may even be a loss. But the real big problem is the company that built it has gone bust.
Right, so this company from Buckinghamshire.
Yes, gone bust, and there are issues with regards to the property on the northern side of the road, opposite the digital arena, was also part of the project, and that needs some serial remedial work. And the company's gone bust. And when you look at the whole situation, all the profits and all the jobs created in the design were in Manchester. All the profits and all the jobs in construction were put in Buckingham. Very, very few real well-paid jobs were made in Swansea. And we're left with a debt, a massive debt.
Yeah, right.
Now,
Because the company's gone bust. Who's going to foot the bill?
at this point in time, I guess is as good as mine is going to be the taxpayer.
Of Swansea?
Well, I asked Mr. Rob Stewart. I wouldn't know. But
It's not going to be the taxpayer of Buckinghamshire.
no,
No.
certainly not.
It's not going to be the CEO of the company, is it?
No,
No, it's
they're
going to
gone.
be the Swansea people.
It's going to be Swansea people, but worse still.
Okay.
I don't think anybody in Swansea realises that there is a debt.
Yeah.
There was a debt of about 94 million, estimated, I think, to pay back at about 194 million, but no payments have been made. Interest has been accruing, and nothing is paid till 2030. So the interest is going on each year.
Hang on. So the interest is going up while we can't pay it back.
We aren't paying it back at the moment.
Okay.
Interest is going up. Not only is it going on, interest
compounds,
rates have
right?
gone up so much, from 0.5% to about 6%, and then back down a little bit. But the amount that's going to be paid back is going to be a hell of a lot more than 194 million. It's probably double that. You know, not far short of 350 to 400 million, probably. I couldn't give you an
And that's
exact
out
figure.
of our coffers.
Well, that will
the
be
Swansea
coming
City
out of
Council.
each and every single taxpayer in Swansea from 2030 when the repayments start happening. And it's a 40-year mortgage.
And for reference, because I think, I mean, I think a lot of people, myself included, we hear these big numbers, billion, 100 million, it doesn't mean much.
That's huge.
But the money was, so if it comes to, minimum is what, 194 million, you said?
100,
Sorry?
I think the figure was 194 million.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
and it's probably going to be almost double that by the end. So that's more money we'll pay for the digital arena than that we could even raise using this press and economic model that you spoke about earlier.
It's all about good governance and how on earth you spend the money.
So
but that is a
like,
prime example.
It's not pennies, is it?
Oh, no,
right?
it's huge. It's huge.
Massive on a digital arena. And like, not to be super cynical, but as you said, right, the people who designed it, built it, were all outside of Swansea, basically. It brought some...
Well, not just
neighbouring
outside of Swansea,
jobs.
they're over the bridge.
Yeah.
There were
Not in Wales.
Yeah, there was no employment, real employment made in Wales. And for the next 40 years, the people of Swansea will be paying that debt off. So it's a drag for 40 years. This isn't just a one-off hit. It's a drag for 40 years.
And then furthermore, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but like next to the digital arena, loads of new like shops, cafes, restaurants have opened up. I swear they're all chains.
Yeah, they are.
Do you know what I mean? So like, because I mean, the argument is, we build this digital arena, it's going to bring more people into Swansea to see acts. Okay, sure. But then they're probably going to go have food, like, maybe not in McDonald's, I'm projecting, but like, you know, they're going to go have food in chains, and they're going to probably go to Tesco, they're going to go to a bar where they buy alcohol that's not local. And then again, I mean, not to go after like Ticketmaster and stuff, but when they buy tickets for these shows, it's these massive multinational companies that are responsible for taking the money. So it's this like, it's basically like, let's build the people of Swansea this shiny thing, which just kind of benefits almost everyone except us. And now we have to pay loads of money for it.
Look, it's
a scandal, no?
It is a scandal.
Yeah.
It is a scandal. You just flip it on the opposite side, okay? And you say, how can we turn this into a positive and create wealth?
Yeah.
Right. And how can we create employment? What we need is to do things such as ambition. Think, okay, we need to construct a Welsh business consortium, a Welsh business confederation where business has access to government, government has access to business. And because of the very nature of the Welsh economy at the moment and the lack of large businesses in Wales, it is important that we can construct these organisations such that businesses can combine to actually get involved in constructing the big projects that are out there. And that can happen. I'm dealing with these businesses day in, day out, and I know that they exist.
Because I think that's the big question, right? I mean, we can say that maybe the Swansea arena wasn't super necessary. Maybe people could just go to local venues instead.
Tidal Lagoon would.
Tidal Lagoon. So, Well, yeah, what I was just going to ask really is, suppose you did really need a digital arena, like say it was like life or death, Swansea needs a digital arena, there's going to be riots or whatever. Would there be the, I guess, companies and the talent locally to be able to pull something like that off?
Yes,
Yeah?
absolutely. There's no ifs or buts. Yes,
Mhm.
they exist in abundance. But what
Yeah.
needs possibly to happen is that they would need assistance with being able to leverage government contracts to arrange funding, which could be done, which wouldn't be a government obligation or anything like that. But when you have a government contract, it's much easier to get funding. But also, businesses could permanently or temporarily align themselves to create economies of scale to do that. Now, you take a tidal lagoon.
Okay, so could you explain what that is? Just because I think a lot of people might.
A tidal lagoon,
I guess like so.
or the
Yeah, first, yeah. What is the tidal lagoon?
well, the tidal lagoon is you've got Swansea Bay, the second biggest tidal fall in the world, with the water coming in and going out, and twice a day going through a barrage, which would have turbines, which would then create electric, and it's clean, it's green, and it's local.
And this was.
And it would create huge amounts of electric.
So it would, if you get green energy, like
Yeah.
generate loads of energy. And
If-
there were plans, because I think I'm a bit younger when this was going through, but
Okay.
there were plans for, like, what Swansea City plans for Greece to build it.
Well, they wanted to build it. The person that was looking to build it was a person of less than good repute. Had been pulled up over many instances in the southeast in London in the media. So maybe that was never one that was going to go. But the principle is there that it does create a huge amount of energy, but we weren't. For whatever reason, obviously didn't deem it as sufficiently money well spent from Westminster to actually create the energy. However, the impact here would have been a massive change if and only if we followed the rules that we're looking about in terms of foundation economics, but making sure that the business that designed it, built it, and owns it is based in Wales. And upon that premise, you can then start recruiting in schools and in universities for the specific skills that are needed. And if you follow the logic of it through in the complete opposite direction to what happened with the digital arena, it's the snowball building up rather than getting less. Yeah. Is where if we design it, we can design it probably far better than someone in London could. We would make it far more applicable and appropriate for what is needed. First time round, there was a silly idea of trying to create a dragon island in the middle of Swansea Bay, which served no purpose whatsoever.
Like Dubai.
And at just a stupid cost.
Yeah,
okay, you make it functional, you make it work, and you do it for a reason to actually create energy, good, clean energy. So it's designed, and we can do it cheaper. You've got construction companies in Wales that I know so many good construction companies that could do that job, but certainly could, and it would be cheaper.
Because I guess my question would be something like a tidal lagoon. I mean, I don't know anything about green energy and stuff. To be honest, I try and do the recycling, but like I think of it as being quite a high tech, cutting edge construction project, which would probably require, the real kind of creme de la creme of companies. Like, in my head, I can only think of these companies kind of existing in London or something. But you're certain that we do have the expertise already.
We're in Crofty. Yeah. There's a company just up the road that manufactures metal to very high levels of precision to aeronautical organisations.
Really?
Now, this is
in the industrial estate.
Yeah, less than 500 yards from here.
Wow.
I mean,
okay.
You really couldn't understand unless you're out what happens behind closed doors in factories. There absolutely certainly is, but from a principle perspective, yes, of course we could. But what you then do, and this is where the joined up thinking comes, and it has to be joined up thinking, is that you don't just build a tidal lagoon and it isn't just Welsh businesses, but what you want to make sure of is that you're getting the people coming through in the schools to actually support those businesses, and you have linkages both down chain and or downstream and upstream, in as much as having designed it, having built it, we then need to own it. And as it happens, Plaid Cymru created a Cwmni Egni, energy company, where if we owned that energy and then decided to sell it, not only would we have the ability to put it where we wanted, we would benefit from the markup. So all of a sudden, when Westminster were looking to analyse how profitable it was or feasible it was to create, we've got an added dimension. They stopped at that point, and that was it when it was finished. But if we own it, you could have a 50% markup. So all of a sudden, you could decide the price. But what you could then do is either up the price, or you could cut back and pay off the debt. So the period would be reduced quite substantially. So the payback period becomes much shorter, and the feasibility of it is far more favourable. So if we did it ourselves, it would be a far better deal, not just because it's creating so much money for us, but we could fund it so much cheaper that way.
And I guess just to contrast this to, I guess the sort of historical precedent would be for a project like this, if it was to happen in Wales, it would be owned by some foreign company.
Yes.
And the money would go there.
Yes.
They choose the markup, they sell it back to us.
Yes.
Which is true of like water and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Apparently we pay more for water than England.
We do.
For our own water.
Yes.
Just kind of nuts.
But what would happen is that it would be produced, it would come back to us, and we'd be paying the markup for our own energy.
Yeah.
And that's the same problem that has existed time and time prior.
So it would be like me selling you this piece of paper, and then you selling it back to me.
Yeah.
And me paying the markup.
Yeah. Or you
ridiculous.
selling me a blank piece of paper, I'm printing on it because I've made something a little bit more valid to it. And then you sell it with a substantial markup.
Mm-hmm.
But the point being is that if we sell that energy, it doesn't even need to stop there.
No.
We could sell it to companies, and the companies could be anywhere over the world, who would come to Wales to create employment. And if you're clever, a little bit like the Irish have done, you're not going to get assembly plants or relatively low-paid work that can pick up and go whenever. You're going to get companies that are going to be reliant on people. And that's what the Irish have done so well. So if we do that, then all of a sudden, those companies can't disappear. A, because they can't go without the people, and B, just as importantly, they can't go without losing the green energy that most companies will be craving for in the future.
And I guess something that I'd like to make a little bit of a point about, maybe it's obvious to most people, but when we talk about retaining talent and retaining good jobs in Wales...
And creating wealth.
Yeah. This isn't just some sort of jingoistic, like we just want to keep the Welsh people in Wales or anything like that. No. It is more about like we also want to attract talent, right?
Of course we do.
Because at the moment, the problem isn't recall the sort of...
For me, there are only two sorts of people in life. Yeah. People who give metaphorically and people who take. Yeah. Okay, so it doesn't matter height, weight, sexuality, colour, religion, completely, totally immaterial. If you live in Wales, to be honest with you, like it or not, you're Welsh, right? You're part of the Welsh community, and therefore we need to act as one. We need to act in unison and together. And for me, the biggest problem that Britain has had, it's not any idea of what to do socially or economically. And economics and the social side are different sides of the same coin. All right, you need a certain type of society for a certain type of economy. Britain is failing on both of those, and it cannot go anywhere. My ideal, which is moving on, it's almost like the foundation economics on steroids, is exactly what the Scandinavians do, which is extremely egalitarian, extremely fair, but the type of society that they look at is to be fair, and it's extremely progressive, and they care about the community. It's not so much just the individual, it's the community. And this is where we need to go, and whoever's in the community, irrespective of anything else, is what it's about.
Before we talk about Scandinavian economies,
Yeah.
I'd like to, sorry, I think I phrased that question really badly, about like, about attracting talent and stuff. What I meant, sorry, is just that, so for example, I've studied in Scotland and England. When we say we want to retain people in Wales, we're not trying to like smother Welsh kids or smother like, yeah, well, we're not saying if you're Welsh, you have to stay in Wales.
No.
What we want is more, right, of a sort of reciprocal relationship where, okay, if Welsh people want to go get a job in London, sure, but we also want people in London to sometimes want jobs in Wales.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like,
Look,
because I think sometimes,
and
at least in my
even-
year, sometimes
yeah.
it feels quite not restricting, but like, for example, I'm someone who I'd like to live abroad at some point, maybe.
Yeah.
So I guess the message we're getting across isn't that if you're from Wales, you've got to stay here. What we're saying is like we just want more back and forth, really. If people want to, if there's a lot of Welsh people that want to go to England, cool. But we also want a lot of English people who want to come to us. We want like,
look, absolutely,
yeah, that transfer. Right?
That's been happening for centuries.
Yeah. Whereas at the
And
moment it's more unidirectional. It's more just Welsh people want to go to England. And you don't have it the other way
because
around.
there aren't jobs. But you can't just, for me and for Plaid, it can't be just stopping at London. And for you guys, who I say you guys, I mean anybody younger than me, which is a lot of you, it's one where the border shouldn't stop at London. You need to open up to Europe. And in this current climate, and it's quite hard to see it changing in my lifetime, but the need to be part of a bigger group within Europe is massive, and the economic benefits that would bring to an independent Wales, or even forget, because that's not even on the cards, just for a functioning Wales or for a Britain, are huge. And the sad thing is, since Britain decided to come out of the EU, the whole world has started to simultaneously change. Globalization, which was what Britain was banking on, was dying, or died after the credit crunch. And with COVID, that hit the final nail into the coffin of globalization. So you've got the entire world tightening up with tariffs and going into groups, of which Britain at the moment is Billy No Mates, stuck slightly off Europe, miles away from America, with no one to play with. We don't want that. This isn't an isolationist perspective.
No, it's not super protectionist.
No, not even protectionist in that respect. What we're looking at is to building that base level economy that should be there anyway, that's been stripped from us. After that, we would be in a very different situation. And Ireland have shown over the last 40 years what an economy can do. In 1980, for every pound that we earned, you earned or I earned, our counterparts are earning 90p. Now it's over £4.50. It's huge. And every other country in Europe, Northern Europe, is living at those sort of levels or slightly below compared to Britain. And we're on the back end of what is a hugely dysfunctional economy in the UK. And so Wales is really stuck. There's a huge, huge step up for us to go when we can get there. And the smaller countries in Europe are really pushing ahead much, much quicker than the big countries. So there's nothing that would stop us. But we're only talking about the here and now, which is making the most of a bad hand of cards. And we can make a real good fist of it. And we can make a big change in Wales as it stands.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go too much on a tangent, but I guess with Ireland, like, this is mostly anecdotal, but I mean, when you say that, sorry, was it that now our kind of Irish counterparts make £4.50 for every pound we make?
Yeah, and they're also
That's-
settling off their debt. In as much as if you look at it as a mortgage on a house, they're paying capital and interest. And to pay off the capital is incredible because Britain has never, ever paid off any capital. As a government, we've had an interest-only mortgage forever. And if we don't have growth, then we go backwards and debt increases. And the only reason they get rid of debt is not as an absolute amount, it's only as a percentage of gross domestic product. So if the country grows, it may reduce the debt as a percentage, and that's the only way the debt is paid off.
So yeah, I'm out of my debt. Yeah, I don't know much about paying back debt and that,
Okay.
how Ireland does that. And I guess
a student loan?
Yeah.
Do you pay interest on your student loan?
I do.
Right. If you're not paying any capital off or any interest off,
It's
then
just ballooning, right?
it's ballooning.
Yeah.
If you're paying your capital off, the interest goes down. Interest rate will be the same, but the amount of interest charge goes down. Ireland have achieved that. So they're in a strong, very strong position in as much as they can borrow money much cheaper than Britain, and far, far, far more resilient.
So I'm speaking quite anecdotally here, but people who I've met from Dublin in particular say that in the recent years, after you have loads of these big tech companies move in and lots of these massive multinational corporations, who I believe go to Ireland because it's got quite low corporate tax rates on the whole. They say that places like Dublin have become pretty much unlivable. They've become so expensive.
Yeah.
And I guess, yeah, my like pushback would be that Irish people make £4.50 for every pound we make in Wales. That number, I assume, comes from GDP or GDP per capita, which doesn't measure wealth inequality.
Good. Yeah. No, I
So-
look, absolutely agree. I mean, earlier on, I suggested countries that I would wish to follow are countries like Sweden, Finland, Iceland, Denmark, which have very, very, very different ethos to Ireland. I was just pointing out the fact of what could be done. What we choose to do and how we do it is up to ourselves. And it's a debate that we need within Wales. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. And in Wales, it's not been very good. So if we were in Wales to accept a second-class citizenship, to accept a life which is second-class and a future which is second-class to our children, then let's just continue as we are. That's fine. If you want to live like that, that's great. For me, I would really want to see ambition, because that's what's lacking in Wales. We've had a Labour government that's, I think I've mentioned it already, has just behaved like a glorified county council, not looking how they can make people wealthier in Wales. I don't think Labour actually could exist. If they did make wealth, they'd need to change dramatically. But yeah, we need such a rethink in Wales, and we can make Wales what we want of it. It's going to be hard, but we can do it. Of course we can.
I think that's what people want to hear as well. Because I guess I'm generalising here, but I feel like in Wales there's quite a lot of defeatism
There is.
and maybe apathy, which I
There
think
is.
is natural. Because I'm from like a
If
pretty
you don't have hope, you're going to be.
I'm from like a comfy background, so I've never had that degree of like defeatism and stuff. But I think a lot of people, if they're born into quite difficult situations, it's easy to maybe think that there's no way out and that our country kind of,
Yeah.
It will continue to be as it is currently. But then when you pointed examples like, Ireland, Iceland, Estonia, Slovenia, Denmark, you can like take your pick of countries. There are plenty that we can kind of emulate. So I don't think being we can acknowledge there would be quite like a hard road ahead, but you can kind of
But
acknowledge
how
that
hard was it for Estonia, Lithuania, Latvia,
Ex-Soviet.
ex-Soviet? I mean, they'd been battered, physically battered. Yeah. And how they've picked themselves up. And what you find is that smaller countries are far easier to change than big countries. If you look at gross domestic product per capita throughout the whole of Northern Europe, what you'll see is the small countries are right up there. They're all the really rich countries. The poorer countries are the big countries. And Britain is a big country with a big population, and it is stuck in a doom loop. And it's been stuck in a doom loop since, oh God, 1970s or even before. The economic growth is small, inflation's been relatively high, and what's happening is day by day, week by week, month by month, everybody in Britain is getting poorer. And that's been hidden for such a long time in the early 2000s by Tony Blair, not because they created more wealth, but what they relied on is goods being bought cheaper. And we were able for the first time with globalization to buy goods cheap from Southeast Asia, which made us feel wealthier, but we weren't any more productive. And what we've had is a doom loop of low production, low pay. And that is a cycle that you need to break. But it's something that as a nation, we need to have a debate and say, look, why can't we do what Denmark do? I mean, Denmark has some ground which isn't really agriculturally productive. It's got waves and it's got wind. Well, we've got waves, we've got wind. And they've got ships that they've built, but they've not got a lot of natural resources.
I mean, Iceland, I feel like, is an even starker example, right? I mean, their population is lower than Cardiff, I think, and it's
quite the same as Cardiff,
okay.
But they've got geothermal energy and they've got fish. You go to the Faroe Islands, they got no geothermal energy, but they have fish.
And they get by all right on
Not just that, they're far wealthier than we are in Wales. So how can you? And there are only 36,000, I think, 40,000 people in Faroe Islands.
Because to try and pin it down on the nature of Wales is ridiculous. Because I mean, we haven't got the geothermal that Iceland has, but we've got so much wind. And I mean, I said, Swansea Bay is one of the biggest tidal
we've got everything that we need to be successful in the new age. And we're lacking the physical infrastructure, but we can bypass that now because we're looking at more soft infrastructure. And these are the things you shouldn't need to have huge roads to commute to Cardiff. If you've got the technology that people can work in West Wales and live in West Wales and be part of the economy without have to physically move. Technology is moving so quickly. So it can be done. I've got people that I'm in business with that they're actually living in Spain and running businesses in Wales. Years ago, that just couldn't happen. Now, if you do it in a part-time basis, yeah, of course you can. I mean, the technology is incredibly good. So there's hope, and we have to be ambitious, and that's the thing that is lacking. And it's so ironic that with written outside Swansea train station, ambition is critical. It's critically missing in Swansea. It is critically missing, and it's critically missing in Wales. If we have that ambition, we do have people. We just need to create a little bit more of a culture and celebrate that success is good. And we can create whatever type of society we want, as the Danes have or the Swedes have. Fair, egalitarian, prosperous, and hugely productive.
Yeah, we have the resources and the people. So
we have.
Why not? Yeah,
we have. We'll do it. We can do it.
Amazing. So I want to ask another question. That would be an amazing note to end on. But I do also want to just, I guess, kind of backtrack a little bit.
Oh dear.
Actually, it's not really another question, but just to wrap things up a little bit. So the question I kind of started our chat with was more or less what happens on day zero, right? We want to make Wales a more productive, wealthier country. We don't, at the moment, have loads of money to invest in just more education and infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
So I guess to sum up what you think we ought to do, Plaid Cymru ought to do, without spending loads of money on investments, it would be policy change, like you said, restructuring the economy, right? Policy changes,
and it's policy changes which can affect immediately affect and dramatically affect wealth people here quickly.
They're
Right.
almost like a switch in terms of retaining jobs, retaining tax,
Yep.
retaining profits.
Yes.
You don't have to buy a crate to do that. Or
No,
something, right?
look,
That's just
businesses exist here, okay? What you're trying to do is stop the money floating down the M4,
Yeah.
and that's a political decision. It's just not even, I suppose, a political decision. It's a normal business sense head on a government
yes.
of what we need to do, which is only fair that every other country would have a base level economy, and you're creating that base level economy. There's nothing untoward, difficult, or unfair about that whatsoever. That's what we would do. But also, we need to think long and hard about our systems. The systems, whether you look at the NHS, the systems, whether you look at schools, businesses. It's horrific. It is so backward. You could go to Finland. You could go to a bank in the morning. You could ask, "Could I have a mortgage, please?" And they could say yes in an hour. And you think, okay, what good is that? Well, you can then go and you can look at a house, you can look at a flat, you can then say, "I'll have that one, please." And that could take you a couple of hours. It could take you a couple of days. But if you found one in an hour, you could actually spend 2 hours with the bank getting the actual mortgage. You could spend 2 hours looking for a house, and then you'd be given a choice by the estate agent at what time in the afternoon would you like to move in.
You just can't.
Now, that is because of technology. That's because of systems, human systems, as well as. So we need to think long and hard about our systems. They can change. They must change. I've got a meeting, I think it's tomorrow, about specifically on this. A group of people from Wales, youngsters in their 20s, 30s, all have experience in different industries, and have come forward with exactly the answer to that. I've just had a software package created for me with my business by a local guy from Swansea. Like me, he had to move away. He was all over the world, then come back to Britain, and now thankfully back to Wales. And he's created something for me that makes my business about 4 to 5 times more productive, just because the systems are there, and it is transformational. And it's wealth creation is the productivity. It's the ability to make 2 bags of potatoes rather than 1 from a field. It's the ability to do work quicker,
and like 4 days a week instead of 5.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can do it when that productivity is there.
That's the thing. It's once it's there, because I think, especially on the left, like maybe I'm in a bit of an echo chamber. But I think to a lot of people who might be drawn to Plaid, productivity can be a bit of almost a dirty word, in the sense that at the moment there's a lot of criticism of what Byung-Chul Han calls the achievement culture, and that people are always trying to achieve stuff in this hustle culture. But I think at the moment we're not in a country that is prosperous or productive enough for excess productivity to really be a problem.
There is not excess productivity. There is not anywhere adequate productivity. But that isn't because the people. I mean, are you any less intelligent, any less hardworking, less able than any of your counterparts in Finland, Sweden, Germany, Denmark, Norway?
No, of course not.
Right. Well, or Ireland, why are they earning so much more money than you?
Right. It's these political decisions.
It's
it's the policies. We're not retaining wealth jobs.
Exactly. It's just purely down to that. And when you say political decisions, I'd like to make it far more explicit. It's just hugely bad governance, both in Westminster in one direction, but particularly for me in Wales, it's what's happened in the Senedd with Labour. They've not had an economic plan in Wales about Wales, how to create wealth, since 2001, when they're jointly in power with Plaid. Now, if I'm looking up businesses and trying to figure out what happens where the money is invested, if there isn't a business plan, you can't do it. If there's no budget, how do you expect it to survive? So without any direction, It's how do you mould something? You can't. And the very fact that it's not working, is it the people's fault? Is it the government's fault? But we've accepted the mediocrity that has been imposed on us, and we've accepted that second-class citizenship. It's about time people in Wales woke up, smelled the coffee, and thought, there is a whole new life that we can have. And it's not about money for the sake of money.
No.
This isn't capitalism for that. There's a very different capitalism in Wales to there is in London, where you have got the multinationals who being run by non-owners. I mean, they create their own wage packages, and it's just obscene.
Yeah.
But here you've got small, medium enterprises, people who are running these businesses, who've started the business. They're the babies of these people, and there's a wholly different type of culture. And again, in government, when you go to Denmark, the rules that they set, or Germany, for example, trade union member needs to be on the board of directors. So the board of directors can't do anything that would be hugely against employees. They'd have to be a member of the bank. So on the board of directors. So it keeps it to account. Scandinavia, they'll have limits that the person running the company and owning the company can only have X amount of profit compared to the person with the lowest pay. Yeah. So it keeps the disparity between top and bottom there. But the benefits culture in the UK has the opposite effect to a degree. I mean, obviously we need to have that, but just having a minimum wage makes, to a very large degree, people have that as the standard. Yeah. And then it doesn't go above that. We need to think a little bit more, a little bit cleverer on how to get people out of poverty. And that comes from productivity. And it's not beating anybody up over anything. It's actually how we work cleverer. It's just, we are just not given the tools to do it. And we need to be clever to get those tools and change the systems. And all of a sudden that starts moving.
And to bring back the snowball metaphor.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, because I found out recently that Sweden doesn't have a minimum wage, which I found really interesting.
It's the minimum wage that can actually end up, ironically, putting the wage down, keeping it at that level.
Whereas if you had policies like, restricting the pay disparity between CEO and kind of like workers at the bottom of the hierarchy.
Pushes it all up.
Yeah. So if the CEO wants to take more money, they have to
pay
bring everyone
else
up with them.
Yes.
Whereas in a minimum wage system, don't have to do that, really. No. Interesting.
It's more than one way to do something, and you can do it. For me, I always like the Scandinavian way. It's very fair. It's very egalitarian, socialist, very different type of socialism from Labour. The way that I have seen Labour and socialism grow in Britain, it tends to be top down in the UK, and Scandinavia it's bottom up. Mm-hmm. And for me, that's a far better, far more democratic way of doing things.
I think today, I mean, we've hit on a few different ways in which you can push progress in Wales, one of which would be, changing the policies, this kind of social contract, the idea of, making the forcing the government's hand to employ local businesses. And then you sort of talk about, we need more ambition, more of a kind of spiritual, cultural thing. I guess these all kind of go together, but I suppose we could kind of expect some kind of cascade of, once you bring in the correct policies to retain wealth and encourage more productivity, then the culture might kind of grow with it.
I think, look, it would take a time, but it would change when it's like anything. When you plant seeds, they will grow. Mm-hmm. If you've got the right climate and conditions, they will grow. It just depends on whether you stamp on them in between. Mm-hmm. And we've got to make sure that we don't stamp on them. We have to foster what's good. And we're not looking at brain surgery here. We're looking at implementing tried and tested systems that guaranteed to work. There is no ifs or buts. They work. And you're following the best practice. So there's no reinvention of the wheel. It is good practice. And you've got the happiest people in Scandinavia, happiest people in the world for many reasons. And yes, you'd be happy if you've got a little bit of money. You'd be happy if you've got good services that look after you, and that's great. You'd be happy because it's all centered around family. But when you've got a stable community where community is the important thing, it's not about the individual, it's about the community and the success of the community. And people in Africa even would say, you know, a child doesn't grow up with one family, it takes a whole village. And it's the same principle to slightly different degree in Scandinavia, but it is a community that does it. And we've lost that connection. And that connection has an impact on our communities and our societies. And that sort of pervasive sort of Thatcherism that came out in the late 80s and 90s, and Reaganism and the globalization, and Tony Blair continued it, meant that to a very large degree society and communities were being damaged, but not totally. And we can repair those, and it's that creates the resilience. And I just think back to mid-80s, 84, when I was in London, the miners' strike was on. London was just, it was awful, just homeless people everywhere. It was horrific. And honestly, you'd go from a train station to the underground, and you would have villages of 2,000 people in cardboard boxes, living in cardboard boxes, and just functioning as you would if you were at home. Unbelievable. It was horrible. And then you come home and you see miners that will strike for a year and forget all the politics. The fact that they could exist without money, being supported by communities, gives the level of strength that community, for me, can impart. So don't underestimate communities.
Amazing. I think we might leave it there. We're an hour and 20 into the video.
Wow.
Are there any closing things you'd like to say before we finish?
No, just thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on. Cheers.
Pleasure.